Hello and welcome to Butter Movies.
Lioness can't decide what war it's fighting. In just 3 episodes, Season 2 has racked up a kidnapped congresswoman, a mysterious threat from China, and our own corrupt DEA. The US is also gaining enemies by the minute. Every mission that Zoe Saldaña, team embarks on could anger NATO, the Department of Justice, or anyone else looking to start a global conflict by pushing the right dominoes. It's exhausting trying to keep up with the antics. In Episode 3's cliffhanger, Josefina Carrillo, Genesis Rodriguez, reveals that she lied about how close she was to her uncle. He's our secondary target in Season 2, behind the nameless Chinese agent. Carrillo's lie wasn't a shock to me, but it is a surprise to Joe. Deputy Director Byron Westfield, Michael Kelly, isn't as surprised. That is a staggering discovery, Joe, he sarcastically tells her. If the mission goes according to plan, Carrillo's entire family will likely die. And you find it odd that she would be resistant to such an endeavor, he asks Joe. I find it troublesome, she responds. So Joe is tasked with finding someone who can shadow Carrillo should she double-cross them on their mission. On her way out, a random car tails her. With some help from her teammate Kyle, Thad Luckenbill, they stop the driver and learn that his identity is Special Agent Gutierrez. What the fuck is CIA doing wandering all over the border like it's fucking Syria? Gutierrez asks them. Thought you were supposed to be a covert operation. Surprised you didn't show up with the army's fucking marching band. He also reveals that his order to tail Joe came from the DOJ. Whatever you think you're doing on the border, you better fill me the fuck in, he orders. Taylor Sheridan gave this guy all the coolest lines that could fit into his 2-minute scene. You think they kidnapped that congresswoman for no reason? Gutierrez asks Joe about their enemies. I've been doing this for 20 fucking years. I am the file you can't check out of a library. Something tells me these people don't spend time in libraries. Joe's club isn't done growing either. Cruz is back after leaving the Lioness program last season. I'm a man short on my strike team, Joe tells her. I need a shadow. Cruz spent the time in between seasons killing pirates on a ship, possibly alongside Sheridan's character. In Episode 2, he went on a mission to shoot some pirates from an oil tanker. If Paramount's planning a spin-off, it's building the hype in every damn episode. Still, what could possibly convince Cruz to rejoin the Lioness team? Well, Joe had her reassigned to it. It's not her choice. Joe heads to another meeting with Caitlin and Westfield. He muddles the game a bit more as he attempts to prove to Joe that it's naive to think that they're in this business to save lives. Nobody but you is factoring in lives, or dignity, or sovereignty into the equation, Westfield explains. A successful mission means a 10% budget increase for the program. That's it. The line is reminiscent of Cruz's, all we did was change oil prices, stinger from last season. At the end of the day, not even heroism can propel our mission. It's just bleak, any way you look at it. The Lioness team puts their heads down and continues the plan. Gutierrez signals a warehouse they can target, but Joe feels like they're being set up. According to Gutierrez, this is a potential spot for contraband. The reward could be huge, and they intend to set it up to look like a rival gang hit. The variables heading into the mission are so vast I can't tell why it's still happening. That's war, I guess. Westfield treats the border crisis like it's Afghanistan or Iraq. So Joe's team is forced to hit the warehouse. They kill everyone inside, including the occupants of 3 more cop cars driving out to check on the chaos. Then the team finds hundreds of children inside. Lioness Season 2 is supposed to be about drug trafficking, but dropping hundreds of kids into the story suggests that Sheridan might just be using the drugs as a jumping-off point for something much bigger. At least, if all the show does with the children is leave viewers with that last shot of them wandering alone off into the desert, it will be a letdown as well as being profoundly depressing. But as DEA agent Gutierrez, that's 12 Monkeys and fringe star Kirk Acevedo at his snarky best, reminds Joe and Kyle Sanford, the cartels have their fingers in a lot more than just drug dealing. Opening up the story to other kinds of criminal activity also means opening it up to other potential plot twists. And that could be very beneficial, as the second season is now halfway over. The addition of Acevedo is also a boost. Anyone who watched him in either Fringe or the underrated 12 Monkeys knows how he brings a little edge to every character he plays, and while Gutierrez is so far more of a clueless, fish out of water, who uses outdated surveillance photos and doesn't have CIA technology, he could change as he learns the ropes. The only downside is that in 500 Children, Sheridan uses him as a walking explainer to the audience. He monologues to Joe and Kyle about how dangerous the cartels are and how much trouble they could all be in, as if they, and the viewers, don't already know what they're dealing with. He also has one of the most cringe-worthy lines uttered on TV in a long time. But having said that, Acevedo has enough talent to do something with the character. Between his addition, the return of De Oliveira, and the presence of Max Martini, Season 2 has a pretty impressive guest cast. And the most fun part of the show isn't actually any of the spycraft but an unlikely alliance between two equally intense characters, which Season 2, Episode 4 gives a nice chunk of screen time to.
When last we tuned into Taylor Sheridan's espionage thriller, Jo, on the heels of beginning her new Lioness training, came to realize that Captain Josie Carrillo was not at all forthcoming when she was first recruited to gain intel on Los Tigers, aka the Chihuahua and Coahuila cartel that kidnapped a U.S. congresswoman and likely has ties to both the Mexican government and China. What is a Lioness trainer to do if their undercover asset cannot be trusted to be loyal to her country? Related stories. Morgan Freeman Lioness. Morgan Freeman has acted in his fair share of White House drama. Here, he explains why Lioness is different. Lioness Season 2 Josie Genesis Rodriguez. New Lioness roars, Genesis Rodriguez spills secrets behind Josie's fiery intro and her hard yes video. That is the dilemma now facing Zoe Saldaña, and her superiors, as seen in Twine's exclusive sneak peek from this Sunday's episode. When last we tuned into Taylor Sheridan's espionage thriller, Jo, on the heels of beginning her new Lioness training, came to realize that Captain Josie Carrillo was not at all forthcoming when she was first recruited to gain intel on Los Tigers, aka the Chihuahua and Coahuila cartel that kidnapped a U.S. congresswoman and likely has ties to both the Mexican government and China. For one, Josie is quite aware of her immigration lawyer father's true involvement with his brother's cartel. Also, she does speak Spanish, despite originally claiming otherwise. Congratulations, Jo. You recruited a mole, CIA officer Kyle remarked after Josie revealed herself. Jo herself was not at all pleased, either. Your father is a lawyer? You don't speak Spanish? You think we're f***ing amateurs, she barked at Josie. We do this for a living. Josie denied signing on as Lioness to secretly protect her family, and reiterated that she loves her country. But do you love it enough to put your father in prison, asked Jo. To destroy everyone she loves, and everything they built? In the sneak peek above, from Season 2's 4th episode, 500 Children, Brian, Michael Kelly, and Caitlin, Nicole Kidman, tasked Jo with assigning a shadow to Captain Carrillo, to take immediate and deadly action in case the Lioness in fact flips on her country. Jo doesn't trust the new Lioness. For all her time and experience behind the intelligence curtain, she still insists on running her operation in good faith. For the love of country, warts and all. But as resident queen of pragmatic CIA gallism Caitlin Meade reminds her, Jo shouldn't trust any of them. Trust, in other words, is not a luxury available to anyone who serves the agency. Spycraft is the lie craft, and Jo suspects Josefina Carrillo's story isn't her whole story. The trick is figuring out what to do with the truth once you extract it. This week, Captain Carrillo arrives at Fort Bliss, the temporary rough-and-tumble home of the Lioness crew, and gets a condensed, but no less nightmarish intro course in militant espionage, while Jo gets another quick fix of Full House-style domestic play, and Caitlin greases some wheels of power in Washington. The button gets pushed on Josefina's cover, with news of her discharge spread over cable news. Back at the Saucy Exposition meeting room, our bigwig Greek chorus of Mullins, Mason, and Holler express concern over the convenience of their new assets cover story and point out the historical stickiness of CIA operations moving drugs across the border. A quick nudge from Caitlin gets the real concern out of them, though public outrage over the congresswoman's abduction isn't holding, and the press is resisting a push for greater awareness. The response is divided on party lines, and as the show has reminded us at least twice every episode so far, there's an election looming. The president is polling at 40% and they need more support from their side of the aisle to move on their current plan, as if we needed to be reminded of our real-life election. We'll see how that plot point affects the enjoyment of the show come next week. Yikes! Josefina is flown into Fort Bliss and picked up by Bobby, Jill Wagner. Right away, she is shown that working with the CIA is not going to be like her time in the army. Things get no better when she meets the rest of the team, who basically ignore her. She asks what they have to do to get past the awkwardness. But the team says nothing, they don't want to know anything about her aside from her cover, and she doesn't need to know anything about them. The next morning Josefina gets a rude awakening to the team's living arrangements, as they all share a single latrine. She's apparently shy about showing herself naked, but Tucker, LaMonica Garrett, tells her where she can get some privacy. She doesn't have much time for that though, as Kyle, Thad Luckinbill, arrives and tells her he wants to see what she's made of. He has her observe the team run a drill where he says they rely on S***T hits the fan tactics. One watch and then it's her turn. But first, she gets a lesson in shooting, with her taking target practice as everyone else makes noise and yells at her, noting there is no such thing as a peaceful gunfight. She then does the house drill, complete with loud noises and strobe lights to distract her. She hesitates in certain situations but ultimately completes the drill as instructed. Joe arrives and asks Kyle how Josefina is doing. He says she doesn't know anything, but she learns quickly, follows directions, and does what she's told without asking too many questions. A good place to start. Next, Joe wants to have her run through the simulator. Pushing for the truth. Wearing a VR headset, Josefina is put through a simulated situation where she has to take out a number of enemies on a Mexican street. She comes upon a man holding a young woman hostage. She yells at the man, a simulation, mind you, to let the woman go, but instead, the man shoots at Josefina, ending the simulation. Joe scolds her for her performance, telling her they're not a hostage rescue team, they're a kill team, eliminating their target is their only mission and any obstacle to that must be overcome. Josefina asks how Joe would suggest she overcome a 16-year-old girl with a gun to her head. Shoot the girl yourself and then the enemy, Joe answers. Josefina says that's murder, but Joe corrects her, it's survival. Joe needs more time to train Josefina, but Kyle points out that they don't have it, she has to be embedded soon. It's time for Joe to get tough with her. So Byron and Caitlin split duties convincing the two senators holding up the votes. Caitlin enlists the help of her Illuminati financial investor husband Errol, Martin Donovan, to opine on the economic consequences of another high-profile target on U.S. soil over dinner with Senator Fuller, while she lets it slip that the abduction was a probe instigated by Chinese intelligence. With the boogeyman sufficiently incepted through hushed tones, the senator seems interested in letting Caitlin and her team take care of it all quietly, somehow stopping another 9/11 from happening while preventing a devastating market collapse. I don't know, that's the argument Caitlin and Errol make between bites of what I'm sure is insanely expensive, mediocre as, well-done steak. And I guess it's enough to get the Senate on board and procure a black fund for the mission. Only 3 episodes in, and Joe's home life pattern is already getting a bit redundant. Pull up to the driveway with a melancholy mix of weariness and relief, get triggered into perceiving a phantom threat, draw a gun, and almost shoot a family member. This time, though, she catches Dr. Neil enjoying a quiet afternoon bath while the girls are away. I think we can officially hand the devoted and devastatingly hot TV house partner championship belt, husband, wife, or otherwise, to Dave Annable, who's so goddamn handsome as to make these otherwise hilarious sitcom-y family intrigue worth sitting through. The whole "you should be happy your parents love each other" scene after Kate walks into direct view of her parents' parts mid-smash had me in tears. Even when they stick him with the task of arguing with his daughters about their friend being non-binary over breakfast, complete with a groan-worthy appeal to the free exchange of ideas, cribbed from whatever episode of the Joe Rogan podcast he heard that morning. Just when I thought my sexual orientation was shifting from Zoe Saldaña verbally destroys someone to Dave Annabelle makes eggs. Anyway, on her way out the door, Joe backs him up with a little CIA mom twist. What your father means is ideas are meant to be challenged. He has the right to disagree with you, and you have the right to disagree with him. There are nations where that right doesn't exist, and those are the places you don't want to visit. Joe goes to those places so they don't have to, etc., etc. The inner conflict between her patriotism and detached realism seeps through the things she tells her family as justification for her absence. Like Joe, the Lioness series continues to run on the mythical boomer centrists' vague distrust in our institutions undercut by a resounding belief in the fractured American white hat mythos. It also continues to exhibit the type of uncanny, lizard-brainy images of combat and violence to erupt from Hollywood's deep well of dissonant, yoked espionage dramas. Josefina's welcome to Fort Bliss is characteristically cold and all the more abrasive by the lack of privacy in the open bunk, co-ed showers, and open latrine. I can tolerate this in Pakistan, I can't do this shit in Texas, shouts Bobby, storming out of the shower after 2 cups runs in to take a huge emergency dump, the whole mad scene recalling the co-ed showers of our future fascist space military in Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers. Josefina suggests they break the ice and get to know each other at dinner, but the Lioness crew isn't interested in getting to know their Lioness this time around, not beyond her cover. We don't got time to learn both, says Tucker. This party starts at dawn, where Josefina shows her natural aptitude for the job, owning a standing target at the firing range and demonstrating a rapid-fire mastery of boots-on-the-ground directives in the noise torture obstacle course or whatever. Things get shakier, though, when Joe puts her through a goofer-looking VR exercise. Josefina yells, "Let her go," at a fake assailant holding a fake hostage with all the fervor of a boomer shrieking in terror at a VR roller coaster. This makes it pretty funny when Joe says, "What are you, a cop? Let her go?" The point is that this is a kill team and a kill team only. To kill is to survive. And now, Josefina's survival will require her to destroy her family. Here's where Joe takes Caitlin's cue from the top of the episode. She can't trust Josefina, but she can use that distrust to identify pressure points, recruit not by way of camaraderie, but by fear. Josefina told them a heavy stack of lies, that she didn't know her father and uncle's business and didn't speak Spanish, enough to put her away as a mole with a phone call to the military police. If she lied to protect her family, how are they supposed to believe she'll destroy them for love of country? Josefina claims she broke away from them a long time ago because she didn't want to know or have anything to do with the cartel. She seems to be telling the truth on that count, but the truth doesn't matter when she's already been cast in the central role of this operation. Under duress, she plays her part and makes the introductory call to her father. All in a day's work when you're in what Caitlin Mead calls the sovereignty of our nation business. She tells Josefina the next part of her mission is going to have her go home to her parents. When Josefina argues she doesn't have a close relationship with her family, Joe rips into her on that. She doesn't believe she's oblivious to her father's cartel connections and wants to know what else Josefina failed to tell her. Kyle and the rest of the team come over to add to the intimidation factor. When they speak Spanish to her, Josefina breaks and reveals she can indeed speak Spanish. They now claim Josefina is a mole and will have military police take her. Josefina pleads her case, saying she stayed away from her family because she didn't want to know their business. But Joe is confident she does know about it and that she could just be protecting her family. Josefina says she joined the Lioness program because she loves her country. Enough to put her father and other members of her family in jail, Joe asks. Joe gives Josefina one chance, putting her phone in front of her. Through tears, Josefina picks up the phone and calls her dad.